Welcome back to the Brooch YouTube channel. Today we'll be learning how to make a sleeve with asymmetric flange attachment. Okay, you're going to have a basic sleeve just like this, and then on the hemline of the basic sleeve, that's around the elbow area, it will be joined with a flange or a flare that has like an asymmetric style. So now I want to draft it on a paper because I want us to see it clearly and we'll be able to follow this as much as possible. So the first thing we need to note is how long we want our sleeve to be. Okay, so you need to take your sleeve measurement from your upper part of your armhole all the way to where you want your sleeve to reach. Okay, so now for me, the elbow I'm working with is actually 12 inches. And I made it 12.5 because of seam allowance. And then my sleeve, the total length of my flare, including the seam allowance, I want it to be 9 inches. Okay, which means the total sleeve length is 20 inches, but I'm making it 21 because of the sewing that I'll be joining my flare to this. So now I've removed the elbow because the flare is going to start from the elbow, which is 12 inches. Now if I deduct 12 from 20 inches, I'm going to have 8 inches, and I'll add 1 inch allowance to it to make it 21. So which means the length of my flare is going to be 8 plus 1 inch allowance, which is going to be 9 inches. Okay, now to know the radius of my flare, I need to know the circumference of where I'm attaching the flare to, which is in this case my elbow. Okay, the circumference of the elbow I'm working with is around 5.5 inches, as you can see here, and that is what I'll be using. So the 5.5, I'll be approximating it to 6 inches. And when I have 6 inches, I'm not going to be, that's 6 inches on fold. So if it's not on fold, this means it's actually going to be 12 inches. So I don't want to use the 6 inches exactly, so I'll be multiplying the 6 inches by 3. I'll be multiplying the 6 inches by 3, which is going to give me 18 inches, and it is this 18 inches that I'll be using as my asymmetric. I don't want to use exact measurement of my elbow because this sleeve is still going to be having like a rose, and I need extra fabric to do the rose. That's why I'm adding extra inches to it so that it will be enough for me. So now the circumference I'm working with now is 18 inches, and for a full flare I'll be dividing the 18 inches by 6.28. I already have a detailed tutorial on this, you may want to check that out. So 18 divided by 6.28 is going to give me around 2.88 something, which I'm going to be approximating into 3 inches. So now my radius is 3 inches. Okay, so I'm going to be folding my fabric into 4, like I want to cut a 360 full flare. Okay, so now you can see my fabric is folded into 4, and then I can easily start my measurements. Remember, the radius I'm working with is 3 inches, and the flare I'm working with is 9 inches. This is going to give me 12 inches. So 9 plus 3 is 12 inches. The first thing I'm going to do is to measure the 12 inches round like this. So from here I'm going to be measuring 12 inches round, and then after that I'll measure my 3 inches radius. Okay, so this is my radius, which is 3 inches, as you can see, and this is my full flare length, which is 9 inches, as we can see here. So now using my scissors, I'm going to cut this out. Okay, so now I've cut this out, and as you can see, we have a full flare circle like this. Okay, so now that we have our full flare circle, the first thing I'll do is to open one of my flares. But as you can see now, because I'm working with paper, you can see that the crease lines are easily showing. If you are to be working with a fabric, you may want to, before you open it up, you may want to do your notches so that you know your cardinal points. But because this is a paper, it's very easy for me and it's very feasible. So for it to be more feasible, I can decide to just draw it out with a marker. So I decided to use a paper for this so that it will be visible for us, because the chalk that I'm working with may not show very well on a fabric. Okay, so now I've divided my flare into 4. As you can see, we have 1, 2, 3, 4. So let me just try to label it 1, 2, and 3, because I'll be making references to them. Okay, so now the first thing I'm going to do now, remember I said it's an asymmetric flare, so which means it's not going to be all equal like we have it here. Some will be high while some will be low. Like it's like we are doing a high-low flare. Okay, so to create my high-low effect on one part of the open part like this, remember our full length is 9 inches, so I'm going to divide it into 2, which is going to give me like 4.5 inches, and then I'm going to note my division here. Okay, I just divided one part of it like this. I just divided it into 2, and then remember I labeled my point 1, 2, 3. Okay, so from this point that I labeled here, I'm going to skip 1, skip 2, and then connect from here, from the 4.5 that I dotted here, all the way to my 3 inches here. I hope you understand what I'm doing. Let me try to raise this up so that I can take it at a time. Okay, so what I'm trying to do is, remember the 4.5 that we dotted here, I want to connect it in an high-low format to my point 3, yeah, which is almost to the last point to the last quadrant which we have here. So I'm leaving 1, 2, and then I'm connecting it to 3. So remember it is very, very long, and it may not be easy for me to just connect it straight like that. So for it to be easier for me, I want to take it bit by bit. Remember I took 4.5 inches from here. Here I can decide to just reduce it by 1 inch, and then take 3.5 or 3 inches. Okay, if I have 3 inches here, then I will go over to this point also, that I will take it maybe to 2 inches or 1.5, just for it to be going in bit like this, and then up to my 3 inches mark. So now maybe if you have a curve, or but I will be using my free hand, I'm going to be connecting first from this point here to this place. So like I said, we are taking it in bits to make it easier for us. You can see I've taken it here, I've connected it to the 3 inches. So now remember I took 2 inches here also. I'm going to be connecting from here to this. You can see that it is getting lower. It is very wide here, so from here it's getting tapered, and then from my actual 3 inches which I want to connect it to, I'm going to connect it like this up to this. You can see how easy it is for me to do my connections. I'm connecting from the 4.5 that I took here all the way to the label, to the point that I marked 3. But it may not be easy for me to just connect it straight like that. That's why I decided to start reducing it. I had 4.5 here, then on the first mark that I did, I went by 3 inches, and then here I further reduced this to 1.5 inches before I now connected this to the 3 inches that I am going to initially. Okay, so we are done with the upper part. Now with the lower part. Now to the upper part. The first thing I will need to do is to take the measurement of my round sleeve, which in this case is 11 inches. Okay, so from the part here that I did not touch, remember the main reason I'm doing this is for me to be able to form a rose for my flange, and the rose will not be this wide. That is why I'm trying to make a high-low. So this part is the one that I will be attaching to my main sleeve. So now on this part that I'll be attaching to my main sleeve is where I'll start my measurements. Now I'm going to take my 11 inches round, which is my actual measurement for my sleeve. So to get my 11 inches is around here. Okay, very close to my midpoint. So now on my 11 inches, what I know now is that all this is what I'll be sewing to my sleeve, and the rest that I have here is what I'll be using as my flange. So now because the flange this side, it may not be easy for me to actually gather it on the flange here. I will need to to further extend this to further shaping this place, so that it will be I will have something like this, and it will be easier for me to gather it, because once I want to gather this, it's too small, it may be rumpled and it will not gather well for me. And besides that, this is actually too big to form a flange for me. So I'm going to further reduce this, and then I'm going to just measure from here. I can take 2 inches, 1.5, or depending on how tapered you want the hem of your flange to be. So for me, I'm taking 2 inches, and these 2 inches, just like we connected, I'm going to be connecting it to where my round sleeve stops. Remember, we measured 11 inches for our round sleeve here, so I'll be connecting it from here to where the round sleeve stop before I now do my round sleeve. And to do that, just like I did for this, to make it easy for me, once I measure this, I have 2.5 inches left. Here I can just go here by maybe 1 inch or 1.25, then I'll connect from here to here and then to where the sleeve stops, so that it will be easier for me to connect. Connecting it straight may be a bit challenging, so you can see what I did here, and then from here I'm going to be connecting it like this, as you can see. I hope you understand it. It's very simple, you just need to pay attention to it. That's why I'm using a marker, so that it will be very bold for us. So now I know that this side, you can see it is now tapered, is what I'll be using as my flange, and this is going to cover for my actual sleeve. Okay, so now I can easily cut it out because I'm done. But because I don't want the hem of this is the hem of the rose, I don't want it to be this pointy or sharp. Here I'll be going in by 1 inch or 1.5 inches, and then once I have that, I'm going to try to form like, on the hem line here, I'll be going in by 1.5 inches, and then once I have that, I'm going to blend it in a way so that I'll have like a coffee effect instead of having one pointy sharp edge like that. So once that is smoothing out, I can easily cut out my flange. It is as simple as that. So now, using my scissors, I'm going to cut out the flange. So I've cut the hem. Now I'm going to cut the upper part of the flange. Okay, so with this, our flange is ready, and this is what we have as our flange. So all this here is what I'll be sewing to my round sleeve, and then from here I'll be sewing this to my round sleeve. As you can see, this is going to go with my round sleeve, and from here I'm going to be forming my rose with this that I have left. So now I'll take this to my fabric now, and I'm going to be cutting it exactly like this on my actual fabric, and then I'll be adding stay, and I'll be adding a gum stay to it, just to make the fabric really stand well. Okay, this actually needs a crinoline, but the crinoline you need for this is not the regular crinoline that I've been working with. Like I said, it's not this type of crinoline. You know, crinoline comes in different sizes. Okay, this is actually around 2 inches and it's quite big. Remember, there's a flange that is narrow here, so if you can get a 1 inch crinoline, okay, if you can get a 1 inch crinoline, it's just going to be like half of this. It's just going to be like this, just half of this, and then you can easily place it in here and then sew it. But because I do not have a 1 inch crinoline at home presently now, I'm just going to be sewing it. But I advise, if you can get it, it's better for you to put it. So now I've cut this on my main fabric. I'm using a doll face fabric, as you can see. I've cut it on my main fabric, and then I went ahead to iron interface on it, like you can see, and then I sew it round so that I can neatly turn it so that it will be neatly finished like this. So this is what we have, and this is what we'll be attaching to our sleeve. Okay, so to attach this to your sleeve now, remember this is the underarm area. Let me turn it to the other side. This is where I sew it, which is my underarm area. The flange is not going to be on the underarm. The flange is going to be on the center, like here, where our starting point is. So you will need to notch that. Okay, so So this is where your flange is going to be. So remember, the sleeve is going to come from top like this, and the underarm is going to be under like this. So your flange is not going to be on the underarm because it's not going to be showing. It has to be around here where it's going to be visible for everyone to see. So now, which means, like we normally fix our sleeve from the underarm, this is not going to be fixed from the underarm. I'm going to be fixing it from here that I notched, just opposite my underarm seam here. I'm going to be fixing it from here round like this. I'm going to go ahead to the machine now, fix it round until I get to where I started from, which is my notch. Then I'm going to stop and then use the rest of it as my flange. So now I'll take this to the sewing machine now, and then I'll start stitching from this side, not my underarm, because I want my rows to be facing upward here so that it will be visible. So before you do that, you may want to just serge this place, or you just turn it with bias so that all these rough edges will not be showing. So now I'll take it to the sewing machine now and then sew it, then bring it back to show us. Okay, so as you can see, I've taken this to the sewing machine now, and then I just sew it round like this. I started from where I notched, and then once I got to that place that I notched, I stopped. So now once we open it out, we will see what it looks like. Okay, so like I said, this is where it is, and you can see it is asymmetric. It is not the same length that you have starting from here that you get when you get here. Okay, so this is what it looks like, and this is our sleeve now without our flange. So now forming your flange is going to come on top of this. You can either make like a tiny pleat or gathers before you start forming it so that it can bend well. Remember, there is a stay here which may be controlling it. So now I'm just going to try to show us what I'm doing. So now I'll be forming like little pleats, and that is what I was trying to explain when I said I'm trying to open it up more on the upper part here, so that forming my flange is going to become easy. Because if the radius is this tiny like this, it may be a bit challenging for me. That's why I decided to open it up here, so that when I'm forming my flange, it can easily form well for me, and it's not going to be giving me difficulties. So now I'm going to be forming my flange over this, and then I may decide to do some tiny pleats like this, and then you can see that it is just rolling on its own already, and then I'll just form it like this. So the length of your flange, I mean from here to here, is entirely dependent on you, but because this is a tutorial, I just like it to be big so that it will be really obvious to whoever it is that is watching it. So you just keep folding it now and then form a rose. This is entirely dependent on how creative you are. So now I'm trying to form a rose around here, and you can see I said I don't want this place to be sharp so that it can easily fall in for me here. So depending on how you want to form your rose, this is one, and then after forming this, you can easily put a brooch here so that it can just make it pop a bit, and then you tack this down. Or you can just decide to run like a gather stitch here first, then you gather it before you start folding it. Anyone you wish to do, you can do that. So I'm going to do mine now, then add like maybe a button on it or a brooch, and then I'll bring it back to show us. Okay, so like I said, you can either pleat this or gather it like I've done here. So I took this to the sewing machine, I ran the gather stitches on it, and then I gathered it the way I want it. So now after gathering it, I'm just going to turn it and then use this to form my rose the way I want it to be. As you can see, I'm just going to form a rose here now, and once I have my rose here like this, I'm going to take my needle and thread and then pass it under it to secure it. Once it is secured, I'm going to take my button and then place it here to hide the rough edges and also to beautify it. Okay, so now it is done. I've tagged it and I added a button like I said. You can see how beautiful and simple it is to make this sleeve. So now I'm going to be hanging it on the mannequin so that we'll see what it looks like. So this is our sleeve. As you can see, you see how beautiful and simple it is. Very beautiful. Okay, so you can try yours and let's see what you come up with. Thank you for supporting our channel. We appreciate you. See you in the next one. Bye.